Video is going to be fairly brief. I just want to take you through some issues that you might encounter as you do your transcriptions. I'm going to start out with some issues with segmentation, and then we're going to look at a couple of lines in this text to identify some of the things that you want to keep in mind as you do your transcriptions. So first of all, let's take a look at this page that I've already segmented and run the transcription on to see some issues that might crop up. So first of all, we see that there are some superfluous segmentations. So if we look up here and then over here, so what we can do is hold down the Shift key, click on each one of these lines that we don't need in our transcription, and we'll just clean up the page a little bit. So we'll get rid of this, and then just hit the delete button, and this will get rid of any selected line. Right. Now, as we look at our page, we can also see that the segmentation and then, of course, the transcription missed a word. So we have shar here. So we're going to draw a line manually there. And this will eventually form a mask that will pick up the line. So now we're going to take a look at a few actual transcriptions and see some of the issues that might arise. So as we look along, we'll see that the initial transcription is quite good. However, we are missing vocalization orthographic marks, so we can add those in. I actually have it on. I'm going to switch to Arabic because it's easier here. So we can go through and we can find places where things have not been added. We'll also notice there are a few errors here. In some cases, you might encounter symbols, particularly symbols, but also maybe certain letter forms that either the keyboard doesn't support at all or that perhaps your particular keyboard doesn't support. So it may be helpful, particularly if you're working with older typefaces, to make sure that you have not just Arabic and Persian keyboards activated, but also the Urdu keyboard. As it turns out, occasionally you will find letter forms, and particularly in earlier printed text, that resemble Urdu forms more. They're not Urdu letters. So for instance, a noon that doesn't have a dotless noon. This is just an odd printing convention. But it is a good idea to have those keyboards installed and be able to switch back and forth between them. So as you go along the line, you want to make sure that we're reflecting everything that's there. So we can see here we need to add in vowels. We want to make sure the punctuation is also reflected accurately. And here in the initial OCR it is. Oftentimes the punctuation will cause problems. As a pretty hard and fast rule, you want to transcribe whatever is exactly on the page. So even if the punctuation is incorrect, even if there is a grammatical or syntactical error, you should still be transcribing it. You get to the end of the line, remember to hit return or enter to save your work, because if you don't, if we just hit up and down, as you can see, your work is not saved, so this is very important. You can also look back and see what you have done, so you can see the initial OCR and then the edits that you made, and this might occasionally be useful to you. So if we go down, actually here we see this is a good example of an error that you might miss, where the initial me is disconnected in the printed text, but the OCR has connected it. So all I have to do, of course, here is just hit your spacebar, and now that will reflect exactly. One thing to watch out with yes, you want to make sure that the yeah that you type or that the initial OCR recognizes matches that on the page, and particularly for earlier Arabic and Persian printed editions, there's often variation there. So where you might expect to see a regular yeah, you might see what looks like an alif maksura in, say, an Arabic text. And you want to make sure that your transcription matches whatever is on the page, even if in your mind it doesn't really look correct. So again, we would do the same thing as with the previous line. We would make sure that everything matches exactly. So even if we don't necessarily think that it is correct, we want to make sure that everything is in order. So let me go down and show you another problem that may crop up. So as we go along this line, we'll notice that the last stretch it out, and you can watch. We'll turn on the mask. Ideally, this would happen instantaneously. But of course, things are running a bit slowly. And in fact, this line has not drawn its mask. We'll go back and see if it has. All right, so it hasn't corrected it yet, but it will eventually. You can go ahead and correct the error. This is because eScriptorium is just running a bit slowly right now. But this is something that you should ideally try to do if you see, particularly in this case, where actually now there's one, but entire letter form is missing and it wasn't picking up the aleph as well. So you want to go back and make those corrections. We'll talk later about some other issues, some other ways that you can correct segmentation and bounding boxes that are a little bit more involved. But for now, this should suffice. Ideally, you should go before you run the initial transcription to see if there are any major errors in your segmentation lines or in the polygons. But of course, you're not going to catch everything, and so as you're going along, you may notice these errors, which then you can go in and manually correct. So again, here we want to watch out for punctuation. Here the initial OCR has been correct. Okay, so here's another issue that may arise. Well, first of all, actually two issues. So we notice here that here the punctuation has confused the OCR. So this is something that you're going to want to correct. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. It works, and there we go. So, whoops. So there's something that just happened that will occasionally happen to you. I accidentally hit the down error, and so my work was lost. I have to go back and make a correction. So another thing that you will sometimes show up, the initial OCR did not detect this footnoted, this letter for number for a footnote. So this is something you want to add into. With numbers in particular, make sure that you are following whatever convention is being used in the printed text. And this may vary. So depending on your printed text, you may see Western numerals, you may see Arabic, as in numerals used in Arabic text. And of course, in Persian text, you'll see the numerals used in Persian. Sometimes you might find odd variations that you don't expect. But again, you should make sure that you are reflecting whatever is in the text. So here, the initial OCR did detect the footnote number, but it did not correct the punctuation. So these are all things that you have to look out for, to pay close attention to, particularly things like these little numbers, which may not even be captured by the polygons. And we'll talk later about how you can adjust the polygons with a bit more across the entire text. All right, so the main thing to keep in mind here is pay attention to the printed text. So for instance, in this final line here, we might not have noticed this little dash because again, the polygon has not quite captured. And this is something that we could go back and actually change. So if we go down here, switch back to masks, the easiest thing to do is just to draw the line forward. And for the most part in this text, the initial segmentation has captured everything. So let's actually go back and let's see if our masking is not redrawing, and this is a bit of an issue. This should be happening faster. But it will automatically generate eventually. All right. So here we see here's another issue that may arise. This is technically correct, but we want to make sure that all of our numbers are. Whoops. Did I switch out? No, I did not. Oh, okay. Well, because we have this mix of Arabic, or in this case Persian, and Western numbers, this is causing a bit of issues. So you may find that you have to kind of experiment in some places to figure out what works correctly and sort of the fastest and easiest way for you to operate in this environment. But in general, I think if you pay close attention and if you are very careful to reflect what's on the page,